Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Blake Morrison had always believed his marriage to Harper was solid. 11 years together, a comfortable house in Salt Lake City, stable careers. He worked as a software engineer for a growing tech company, she worked as a freelance graphic designer. Their routine was calm, even predictable. Blake never imagined that predictability could be deceptive. That Tuesday in March, Blake got home around 6 in the evening. The brown envelope was on the door, wedged between the frame and the molding. He picked it up absent-mindedly, assuming it was ordinary mail. When he tore open the seal and saw the letterhead of the Utah District Court, his stomach clenched. A summons. He read the first line and froze. Harper Elizabeth Morrison versus Blake Thomas Morrison. A lawsuit alleging psychological abuse, financial control, and social isolation. Blake read it again, more slowly, making sure he was looking at the right name. It was him. His wife was suing him for abuse. The words seemed written in a foreign language. Psychological abuse? He'd never raised his voice to Harper in 11 years. Financial control? She had an unlimited credit card that he paid off religiously every month without ever questioning her expenses. Social isolation? They'd moved to Utah because Harper insisted on leaving Seattle, away from his family, claiming she needed a change of scenery, and that Salt Lake City offered better opportunities for designers. Blake stumbled into the house. Harper wasn't there. She'd left a note on the fridge, went to the market. Back soon. The normalcy of the message clashed violently with the document in his hands. He read the following pages, each accusation more absurd than the last. According to the petition, Blake forbade her from working outside the home, monitored her phone calls, controlled every penny she spent, and prevented her from visiting her family. Her signature was at the bottom, notarized 3 days earlier. Blake sat at the kitchen table, trying to process it. Harper worked from home by choice, she'd always said she preferred the flexibility of freelancing. Her phone calls? He'd never asked for her phone password or questioned who she talked to. Her spending? He barely looked at the credit card statements, he trusted she managed things well. And her family? They'd gone to Seattle together last Christmas and spent a full week at his parents' house. How had all of this turned into a story of abuse? When Harper came home an hour later, carrying grocery bags, Blake was still sitting there with the documents in front of him. She stopped in the kitchen doorway when she saw him. For a split second, Blake saw something on her face, fear? Guilt? It vanished too quickly to identify. "You saw it," she said. It wasn't a question. "Harper, what the hell is this?" Blake held up the papers. Psychological abuse? Financial control? None of this is true. "It's my truth," she replied, setting the bags on the counter. Her voice sounded strangely calm, rehearsed. "You don't see how you treat me." "How do I treat you?" Blake felt anger rising. "I work, pay the bills, never deny you anything. You have total freedom to do whatever you want." "Freedom?" Harper laughed without humor. "You brought me to Utah, away from everyone I know. You isolated me. And whenever I suggest something, you always have a counter-opinion. That's subtle control, Blake. You don't notice because it's unconscious." Blake was speechless. This was insane. She was rewriting their entire history. "Harper, you were the one who insisted on moving to Utah. You said Seattle was depressing, that you needed sunshine. I left my job, my family, for you." "I'm not arguing," Harper said, picking up the bags and taking them to the pantry. "My lawyer will be in touch. You'd better hire one too." That night, Blake slept in the guest room, or tried to. He lay staring at the ceiling, replaying the past few months, looking for signs he might have missed. Harper had changed, yes. She'd started working late at night, saying she had urgent projects. She'd gone out to networking events with other designers and came home late. 2 months ago, she'd suggested they sleep in separate rooms because he snored. Blake had accepted everything without question, trusting her. Now he realized that trust could be used as a weapon against the one who trusts. The next morning, Blake called David Chen, a lawyer recommended by a coworker. David had an office downtown in Salt Lake City, a spacious room with a view of the Wasatch Mountains. He reviewed the documents as Blake explained the situation, denying every accusation. "This is an aggressive divorce strategy," David said, setting the papers down. "She wants the house, lifetime alimony, and she's building a victim narrative. Utah divorce laws consider each party's conduct. If she can prove abuse, she gains significant advantage in asset division." "But there was no abuse at all," Blake said, exasperated. "I know. But it's her word against yours, Blake. You need to dismantle this narrative. Who can testify on your behalf? Friends, family, her coworkers?" Blake thought. They had few close friends in Utah, they'd only been in the city for 3 years and were still building their social circle. His family was in Seattle. Harper's clients? He'd never met any of them in person. "I don't know if I have many people." David drummed his fingers on the desk. "Blake, I'll be straight with you. A woman who files a case like this usually has a motive beyond asset division. It could be an affair. Do you suspect anything?" Blake wanted to deny it immediately, but the words stuck in his throat. The networking events. The late-night work sessions. The separate bedrooms. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "I don't want to believe it, but there have been strange behaviors." "Then we need to investigate," David said. "I know an excellent private investigator. Former cop, very discreet. If there's something, he'll find it. And if there isn't, at least we'll rule it out." Blake hesitated. Hiring a detective felt invasive, like extreme distrust. But Harper was accusing him of crimes he hadn't committed. He needed to defend himself. "All right. Make the contact." The investigator's name was Martin Reeves, a man in his 50s with gray hair and a military bearing. They met at a quiet cafe. Martin asked for recent photos of Harper, her license plate number, and places she frequented. Blake provided everything, feeling like a traitor even though he knew Harper had been the one to betray trust first. "How long will it take?" Blake asked. 15 days is usually enough for patterns to emerge, Martin said. "I'll follow discreetly and document her activities. If there's something, you'll know." The next 15 days were silent torture. Blake and Harper barely spoke. She'd fully moved into the guest room, saying her lawyer advised them to keep their distance. Blake went to work, came home, and coexisted in the same house as her like ghosts who never touched. He replayed every moment of their marriage, questioning what had been real and what had been performance. On the 15th day, Martin called. "I've got material. I need to deliver it in person." They met at the same cafe. Martin slid a thick envelope across the table. Blake opened it with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of photos. The first showed Harper leaving a luxury condo in an upscale part of Salt Lake City. The second showed her hugging a tall man with dark hair and an expensive suit. They were kissing at the building's entrance. Blake felt bile rise in his throat. "Who is he?" he managed to ask. "Ethan Reeves," Martin said. "A family law attorney. Specializes in divorce." Blake looked at Martin, processing. "Reeves? Are you related?" "Distant cousin. We haven't spoken in years, but I recognized him from the first photos. I wanted to be sure before confirming." Blake flipped back through the pictures. More photos, Harper and Ethan dining at an expensive Italian restaurant. Entering a hotel together in Park City, a well-known ski resort. walking hand in hand on a trail in Big Cottonwood Canyon. In every photo, she was smiling, that smile Blake hadn't seen directed at him in months. How long? Blake asked, his voice hoarse. Hard to say without prior surveillance, but based on their routines, I'd guess at least 4 or 5 months. They have an established pattern. Tuesdays and Thursdays she goes to his condo. Alternate weekends in Park City. The networking events. The late nights working. All lies. Blake flipped through the photos again, stopping at one in particular. Harper and Ethan on a patio, her laughing at something he'd said, his hand on her face, an intimate gesture from someone who knew every angle of that face. There's more, Martin said, hesitating. Ethan Reeves is her lawyer. Blake slowly looked up. What? I checked public records. Ethan Reeves is the attorney representing Harper Morrison in the case against you. I verified it 3 times to be sure. It's him. Reality reassembled in Blake's mind like shards of glass forming a sharp, clear image. Harper wasn't just having an affair, she was sleeping with her own divorce lawyer. The false accusations, the abuse narrative, it was all part of a joint plan. They were building a case to legally destroy him while sleeping together. Is that even legal? Blake asked. A romantic relationship between a lawyer and a client during an active case? That's a serious breach of professional ethics, Martin said. The Utah State Bar has strict rules. If proven, he could be suspended or even disbarred permanently. Blake put the photos back in the envelope, his hands now steady. The pain was there, sharp and deep, but his anger was stronger. Harper hadn't just betrayed him emotionally. She was trying to destroy him legally, financially, and socially based on lies. And Ethan Reeves, a lawyer who'd sworn to uphold professional ethics, was orchestrating it all. Thanks, Martin, Blake said. Do you have copies? Everything's digitized and on a separate flash drive. It's included. Blake took the envelope straight to David Chen. The lawyer examined each photo methodically, taking notes. When he finished, he smiled for the first time since Blake had met him. This changes everything, David said. It doesn't just dismantle her narrative, it exposes her bad faith in court. And Ethan Reeves, he's in serious ethical violation. I'll contact the Utah State Bar immediately. I want to confront her first, Blake said. Before this all becomes formal legal proceedings. I want her to know I know. David hesitated. Blake, a direct confrontation could be risky. She might stage an incident or accuse you of aggression. I'll do it in front of her, him, and a witness if necessary, Blake said. But I'm not letting this go to trial without her looking at these photos and understanding the charade is over. The following Saturday, Blake woke up early. Harper was in the kitchen, drinking coffee and working on her laptop, probably texting Ethan. Blake placed the envelope on the table in front of her. What's this? She asked without looking up. Open it. Something in his tone made Harper look up. She saw Blake's expression and hesitated before picking up the envelope. She opened it slowly. Pulled out the photos. Her color drained progressively as she saw each one. Blake, I can explain. Can you? He cut her off, his voice ice cold. Are you going to explain how you're suing me for abuse that never happened while sleeping with your own lawyer? Are you going to explain how you two fabricated this false narrative to destroy me while dining at fancy restaurants and spending romantic weekends in Park City? Harper dropped the photos as if they burned. You followed me? You hired a detective? You accused me of crimes I didn't commit, Blake said, each word sharp and deliberate. You painted me as an abuser, controller, isolator. You lied under oath. So yes, Harper, I investigated. And I uncovered the truth. It's not what it looks like. Isn't it? Blake laughed without humor. So you and Ethan Reeves, your lawyer, are just friends who kiss and spend nights together? And you're coincidentally building a false case against me? Harper fell silent, looking at her hands. How long? Blake asked. How long has this been going on? I don't know, 5, 6 months, she murmured. 6 months, Blake repeated. So when you suggested we sleep separately, when you started with those networking events, when you stayed up working late, it was all a lie. You were with him. Blake, our marriage has been dead for years, Harper said, trying to regain her composure. We were just existing together, not living. Then you ask for divorce honestly, Blake replied, leaning forward. You don't invent abuse accusations. You don't turn me into a monster to gain financial advantage. You don't ruin my reputation with lies while sleeping with your lawyer. I needed protection. Protection from what? Blake slammed his hand on the table, making Harper jump. From me paying your bills? From giving you total freedom? You're having an affair with your divorce lawyer, Harper. While accusing me of abuse that never existed. You're not the victim here. You're manipulative. Harper began to cry, but the tears seemed empty. What are you going to do? It's already done, Blake said, standing up. I've sent everything to my lawyer, the photos, the investigator's report, documentation that Ethan Reeves is your legal representative. Professional ethics violation. He's going to be investigated by the Utah State Bar. And you? You won't get alimony, much less the house. Blake, wait, Harper stood too, reaching out her hand. Don't touch me, he stepped back. You betrayed me, lied to me, and tried to destroy me. For money. For convenience. Because it was easier to create a villain than admit you chose an affair. Harper's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Blake saw the name, Ethan. Harper answered with a trembling hand. He knows, she said into the phone. He has photos. He knows everything. Blake heard a man's voice on the other end, loud and agitated. Harper hung up. He's coming here, she said. Good, Blake replied, crossing his arms. I want to see the face of the man who built a false case against me while sleeping with my wife. 20 minutes later, a black Audi pulled up in front of the house. Ethan Reeves got out, exactly as in the photos, tall, dark hair perfectly combed, expensive gray suit. He walked in without knocking, his posture arrogant, like someone used to controlling situations. Mr. Morrison, Ethan said, his voice overly professional for the context. I understand you're upset, but following my client and taking photos is... Your client? Blake interrupted. Is that what you call the woman you've been sleeping with for 6 months? Your client? Ethan stopped mid-step. He glanced at Harper, who looked away. You're violating the professional code of ethics, Blake continued. An intimate relationship with a client during an active case. That's not just unethical, it's grounds for permanent disbarment. You know that, counselor. You don't have proof of anything, Ethan tried, but his voice wavered. Blake laughed. I don't? 15 days of surveillance. Dozens of photos. You two entering and leaving your condo, dining together, staying in the same hotel room in Park City. I even have your license plates, timestamps, dates. All documented by a licensed private investigator. Want to see? Ethan paled. Look, Blake, we can resolve this like adults. Like adults? Blake felt his anger erupt. You built a false case against me. You coached my wife to accuse me of psychological abuse, financial control, social isolation, crimes I never committed. All a strategy to make sure I wouldn't contest the divorce and would accept an unfavorable settlement. While you two laughed behind my back. It wasn't like that, Harper tried. Shut up, Blake said without looking at her, keeping his eyes on Ethan. You failed, counselor. Your plan failed. And now you'll pay the price. The Utah State Bar already has all the evidence. An investigation is already underway. Good luck keeping your license. Ethan took a step forward, trying to intimidate, but Blake didn't flinch. You'll withdraw these accusations, Ethan said, his voice low and threatening. Or this gets ugly for everyone. Threats now? Blake smiled without humor. In front of a witness? Please, keep going. You're only making your situation worse. What witness? Ethan looked around. Blake pointed to the corner of the room, where a small security camera blinked discreetly. Security system installed 3 days ago. Records audio and video. Everything you've said since walking in is recorded. Threats, implied admission of a relationship with a client. Keep talking, I'm loving the extra material for the State Bar. Ethan froze. He looked at the camera, then at Blake, then at Harper. His arrogance melted, replaced by panic. Blake, let's be reasonable, he tried a new approach. Get out of my house, Blake said. Both of you. Now. This is my house too, Harper protested. For now, Blake replied. Wait for the hearing. When the judge sees you fabricated false accusations, when he sees proof of your affair with your lawyer, when he understands it was all manipulation for unfair advantage, you'll be lucky to walk away with anything but your clothes. Utah is an equitable distribution state, Harper, but bad faith in court changes everything. Ethan grabbed Harper's arm. Let's go. Now. They hurried out. Blake stood still in the living room, listening to the Audi rev and disappear down the street. Only then did he sit on the couch, his hands shaking with adrenaline. The confrontation had gone exactly as he'd imagined, but it left a bitter taste. 11 years of marriage, reduced to lies, betrayal, and legal manipulation. In the months that followed, the case became a courtroom spectacle of justice. David Chen presented all the evidence, photos documenting the affair, the investigator's report, security camera recordings showing Ethan making threats. Harper's accusations were debunked one by one. Neighbors testified they'd never seen controlling behavior from Blake. Her co-workers confirmed she'd always had complete professional freedom. Mutual friends admitted, when questioned, that Blake had always been a present and respectful husband. Blake's family in Seattle provided photos and testimony of frequent visits, disproving the social isolation claim. Bank statements proved Harper had unrestricted access to money and spent freely without oversight. Phone records showed Blake had never monitored her calls. Each accusation crumbled under the weight of truth. Ethan Reeves was suspended by the Utah State Bar for 18 months, for professional ethics violations, an intimate relationship with a client during an active case, and possible conspiracy to file false accusations. His previously spotless reputation turned to dust. Other clients began questioning his past cases, local newspapers published articles, his law firm lost key partners. Harper, now without a competent lawyer and without sustainable accusations, accepted a settlement that left her with practically nothing. Blake kept the house, it was solely in his name, purchased with an inheritance he'd received before marriage. They only divided jointly acquired assets, furniture, one car, some savings. Harper received no alimony. Utah doesn't guarantee spousal support when the spouse works and has their own income, especially when bad faith in court has been proven. Blake kept his job, and his reputation was restored after a dark period when co-workers doubted him. It takes time for the stain of abuse accusations to fade, even when proven false, but the truth prevailed. He started therapy to process the betrayal and the trauma of nearly having his life destroyed by lies. 9 months after the divorce was finalized, Blake was at a cafe downtown in Salt Lake City on a Saturday morning. He was meeting Marcus, his younger brother who'd flown in from Seattle to visit. He was reading the menu when he saw Harper walk in. She didn't notice him at first, ordering coffee at the counter. Blake watched discreetly. She'd lost weight, not in a healthy way. Deep under-eye circles, simple clothes, nothing like the vibrant woman he'd known years ago. Harper picked up her coffee and turned, nearly bumping into Blake. She froze. "Blake," she said, her voice small. "Harper." An awkward silence. She glanced around, as if looking for an escape. "How are you?" she asked, the formality painful. "Good," he replied honestly. "You?" Harper hesitated. "Surviving." Blake had heard through mutual acquaintances that her reputation as a designer had suffered. Clients didn't want to associate with someone who'd made public false accusations, lied under oath, and manipulated the legal system. Work had dried up. She was taking odd gigs, small projects, nothing compared to the portfolio she'd once had. Ethan, of course, had dropped her as soon as his license was temporarily suspended. Without money, status, or usefulness, she no longer mattered to him. Harper had learned the hard way that a man who encourages his wife to lie and cheat isn't a trustworthy partner. Harper started, then stopped. She looked at Blake with something resembling regret. "I'm sorry. For everything." Blake studied her face, searching for sincerity. He found exhaustion, defeat, maybe genuine remorse. But he found no forgiveness within himself to offer. "I am too," he finally said. "I'm sorry you made choices that destroyed 11 years. I'm sorry you thought lies and manipulation were the way out. But mostly, Harper, I'm sorry you threw away something real for something fake." Tears welled in her eyes. "Blake. Take care of yourself, Harper," he said, picking up his own cup and walking past her. Blake didn't look back as he left the cafe. Marcus was waiting outside, noticing the tension on his brother's face. "Was that her?" Marcus asked. "It was. How are you holding up?" Blake took a deep breath, the fresh mountain air filling his lungs. "I'm better. Finally." And he was. It wasn't full happiness, scars still ached on lonely nights, but it was peace. Peace in knowing the truth, in having fought for justice, in not letting lies define who he was. Blake was rebuilding, seriously considering moving back to Seattle to be closer to family. His career was thriving, a recent promotion had recognized the competence that false accusations had nearly obscured. Harper was left behind, weighed down by her own deceptions. Ethan Reeves was trying to rebuild his reputation, but the stain would remain. And Blake? Blake moved forward, not out of vengeance, but out of survival. Because when someone tries to destroy you with lies, the best response isn't hatred. It's living well, living truthfully, and letting the consequences of others' actions run their natural course. Justice isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, gradual, inevitable. Harper and Ethan had planned Blake's destruction, but ended up destroying themselves. Lies have short legs, truth has the endurance of a marathon. In the end, Blake discovered that a fresh start doesn't require elaborate revenge. It only needs truth, dignity, and the courage to move forward when the world around you crumbles. He didn't wish Harper harm. He didn't wish her anything at all. Indifference is the purest form of healing. And as he walked with Marcus down the tree-lined streets of Salt Lake City, the majestic mountains in the distance, Blake Morrison felt something he hadn't felt in nearly a year: lightness. The weight of false accusations, betrayal, and nearly losing everything was finally beginning to lift. And in its place, something new was growing: hope. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.